I have our sixth fundamental, which is listening to understand. Listening is more than simply not speaking. Give others your undivided attention, be present and engaged. Minimize distractions and let go of the need to agree or disagree. Suspend your judgment and be curious to know more rather than jumping to conclusions. This fundamental is very important, and it isn't always the easiest to do. But like anything else, it takes practice. Listening is a form of communication, and it helps us to establish trust between our interpersonal relationships. If you think about some people in your life who you look up to, you'll probably realize that they all have a commonality. They actively listen to you. There are a few differences, and they're big differences between listening to respond versus listening to understand or actively listening. Listening to respond involves you having a locked and loaded response to what the speaker has just said. You think you might be building the conversation by adding off of what was just said through anecdotes or relaying your opinion, but you're not truly listening. You've already had your thoughts pre-planned out while the speaker was mid-conversation, and it makes them feel like they were not heard. It might also seem like a connecting moment when you try and finish someone else's sentence, or when you add quick ideas into a conversation, perhaps mid-conversation, but this only promotes ineffective communication. Interrupting someone mid-speech causes the speaker to become frustrated and can cause the speaker to lose their train of thought. This then creates ineffective communication because typically as the speaker becomes more frustrated, it's more difficult to relay information. This also means asking questions mid-sentence. While asking questions is great and is something that we should always support doing, maybe save those questions until the speaker is done talking. By actively listening, you're able to set aside your own thoughts, questions, and judgments and just listen. This is what helps to promote productive and efficient conversations. Usually, by allowing someone to speak, you'll be able to clarify your points, ask your questions, they'll be able to answer. It's a good back and forth. Even though it might seem like it takes longer, it runs smoother. Certain conversations, perhaps it's about making changes to trimming or feeds, or when we talk about making mistakes, or even when you're just too busy, can make it hard to be an active listener, where you find it difficult to withhold your judgment, but it's important to do so in order to promote open-mindedness in the conversation. If you're mid-task and someone comes to you and they're like, hey, I need to talk to you, instead of not being engaged and trying to listen to them while you're either typing an email or harvesting or maybe pressing something, ask them if you can have 5, 10, 15 minutes and then speak with them. It's really important not to just be mentally present when actively listening, but also physically by removing distractions. By actively listening, you're allowing the speaker to feel heard. This helps to foster trust between relationships. It allows the speaker to list off their thoughts, ideas, or concerns and feel comfortable doing so. This is extremely important because if someone comes to you with their problem and they feel like you're not actively listening to them, they might not come to you with problems anymore, and that creates a problem within itself. By actively listening, you facilitate communications, not just in that present conversation, but for conversations down the road. Things that we can do to become better active listeners. Reiterate in your own words what you felt the important parts of that conversation were back to the speaker. Maybe build off what the speaker said and add your own thoughts or ideas in that moment. You can show you're actively listening physically by nodding, making eye contact, and positioning your body towards the speaker. Again, asking questions is always good, but try to make sure you're not fixating on one portion of the conversation and just holding on to that specific question. Oftentimes, your question will be answered further along in the conversation. If you feel like it's going to be a lengthy conversation, ask the speaker or whoever else is in that conversation if you can take notes so you can get the important points and that you can ask questions for your clarification. This is what Eamon, myself, John, and Lucas do in our weekly meetings. Sometimes they last 15 minutes to a half hour, but everyone has their notebook. Actively listening allows you to understand others. It's a communication skill, even though you aren't saying anything. Actively listening may not always feel beneficial to you, but by taking the time and practicing a bit of restraint, conversations become more efficient, effective, and more enjoyable. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Thanks.